it's Penelope. Looking at this chart, I want to go through it and give you a few updates of what I think and what I see. And to fill you in, we've got on the 4th of November, we've got a new moon in Scorpio. Then on the November 19th, we've got a full moon, which is going to be in Taurus, and it's going to fall on what in astrology is known as Algol, which is a fixed star, which is the head of Medusa. And if you know the mythology of Medusa, she basically was raped, and she was treated extremely badly by we could maybe look at it by patriarchal ideas, and the feminine that she was in contact with at that time didn't protect her as well. And we can see this playing out in society at the moment, you know, with the idea of adults protecting the children, and you know, ideas that have gone awry, and thinking that there are quick fixes. And when we also take into account Christ consciousness, like the archetype of Christ consciousness, and then the consciousness of man, or the lack of consciousness, we're born into this world, and then we have to make choices that don't just affect us, but affect humanity. And sometimes we want quick fixes because we believe that, you know, that fear can, or brainwashing, or fear, or ideas that people hook onto. And there are many things over the years where people have hooked onto ideas that they think something's good for them that turns out that's not good for them. So it's quite complex being human, but also if we don't reflect and take time to really analyze things and look at data and talk to people and think for ourselves, and we follow, you know, the crowd, then it could be that, you know, we're not making the best choices for ourselves as souls. We're all each on our own journey. That can be seen in astrology. In evolutionary astrology, there are, if you go to the evolutionary astrology webpage, what you can see is that there are different states of, you know, being ultimately. And there are percentages that are marked up there, you know, the 70%, the 30%. It's very interesting to me that 30% of the population are currently choosing not to follow a particular path. And then there's another selection of the population that are following a particular path. And I think we all know what I'm talking about. Going on, we've got so we got this lunar eclipse coming up, and then we've got on December the 4th, we're going to have a solar eclipse, and then that will also be a new moon. And then the final full moon of the year will be in Gemini. When we, you know, if we want to begin to look at and understand consciousness, one of the people that you can look at is Carl Gustav Jung, and this is the Archetypes in the Collective Unconscious. You can maybe have a look at that. It's a heavy duty book. However, there is a lot of stuff in here that applies to humanity as we know it now. And also the, you know, the collective unconscious sort of will hook onto something, and maybe there's not a lot of individuation within it. And we don't really look at things when we're really considering the mess we're making of things. When we look at plastics, the use of plastic on the earth, that we can look at, you know, the way, you know, sexual violations are looked at, and how people are shamed into not speaking about them, and how people that quite high-powered people that have violated quite heavily, like Epstein and the trafficking of young women. And then the people that hang out with him. I mean, we know from the news that Bill Gates was one person that's, you know, had dinners with this person. We've also got Prince Andrew in the UK that's was involved. There's pictures of him with a young woman, again with Epstein. And we seem to be not very clear on the path that we want to take as a collective. We seem to be a bit fragmented, or not just a little bit, like hugely fragmented. And this can be seen partly in the astrology, which I'm going to show you, because when we look at the Pluto, I'm jumping around here, but Pluto entered into the sign of Capricorn, you can see here, in the year 2008. And I'm going to read a little bit of something from my own study of evolutionary astrology and what I wrote. In a couple of days, I'm going to do the new moon. which is coming up in Scorpio, which is quite a heavy chart. I do think there is stuff that's going to be coming to light in the coming weeks, and we're going to probably be seeing things take place that are going to be quite unnerving for a lot of people. Like, I've got to, you know, from the charts, we can see that information is probably going to be coming through that's going to be disturbing somewhat to us. But in order for us to change, maybe, you know, we've been hoodwinked to a degree on some things, and, you know, whether that was done with intention or whether it's been done just because we've, you know, humanity is cocked up because they, you know, I mean, when I consider things, you know, I've got a great friend who's a pharmacist in the UK, and he was telling me, we were having a discussion, and he said that, I said, what's happened to the flu? He said, oh, he said, nobody's had flu since, you know, COVID showed up. And I said, well, how can that be? And he said, well, because we've all been wearing masks. Now you can see when we, you know, having that conversation, if you really think about that, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. So there's not been a lot of thinking going on, and I've looked at alternative stuff, and, you know, people can say, you know, not so much to me, but I've heard the terminology of anti something, which is really not the truth for many people that I know that are choosing not to go along with the masses. It's just different choices, you know, a soul journey, different choices, different reasons. I personally had a situation in February where I had some antibiotics, and I ended up in A&E with a very bad skin reaction that was covering quite a large part of my body. And due to that, I've made a decision that I don't, you know, I'm not into the idea of having anything in my body that I cannot control, you know, or that it may be harmful to me. And each will think for themselves, and everybody's going to have a different reaction. Everybody's body is different, and this is a fact. Some people can't eat nuts, as an example. They will have an adverse reaction to them. So we have to take into consideration that we're not all the same, and we've all got different levels of understanding, consciousness, wisdom, and ideas even about what life and death is as well. You know, for some, we're all on different levels. That's my view. I'm going to read, I'm going to show you this. If I take this Pluto, I'm going to show you this, and I'll show you solar fire. If you're not if you don't know astrology, then you probably won't know what this is, but, you know, this is Pluto, takes 240 odd years around the chart. Then we have Neptune, which is about 184. I'm giving you a rough idea here. We have Uranus, which is about 84 years around the chart. And then we have Saturn, which is 29 years, roughly. And then Jupiter, which is 12 years. And then we have the nodes, which is the life path, and which is the north node is where we're heading, and the south node is where we've been, you know, the past. And what's very interesting about these nodes, you know, when we had a problem with, I think the last time, in fact, actually, I think it was the year 2001, 2002, they were here. The nodes, and then we'll have a look at that on solar fire, because we had 9/11 and the node, you know, the whole Pluto Saturn thing as well, the connection with Pluto Saturn. But here we had, when we had the breakdown in society in 2020 with the beginning of COVID, we had Saturn was conjunct Pluto with Jupiter. All of these planets were together, I think at 22 degrees actually. And then we've got the inner planets. Pluto is transformation, breaking, you know, it's breaking free of, you know, it's transforming. It's like whether we want to break free of something or not, it's transformation, it's rebirth, it's death. Uranian energy is actually breaking free of limitations. Neptune is beyond the five senses. It's, you know, the fantasy, the dream. It's where things dissolve, but it's also where we can be disillusioned. The Uranian energy is trauma and shocks, and we've also got Jupiter, which is expansiveness. It could be grandiosity, but it could also be misused as well. There's a lot more to astrology in the symbols, but then we got Saturn, which is to do with restriction, and that's the, you know, ruled ties in with Capricorn. And then we got Pluto, which is Plutonic energy. Jupiter is to do with Sagittarius, Neptune is to do with Piscean energy. It's the last, Pisces last on the wheel, Aries is the first. We've got Chiron, which is 50 odd years around the chart, 49, 50 years, and Chiron is the wounding. And then we have the sun, which is our will. We have Mercury, which is the communication. We have the moon, which is our egocentric self. It's our ego. It's covered by our feelings, what we're feeling, and what, you know, how things make us feel. And then we have reactions. Mars is our libido, you know, not just the sexual libido. People can sometimes think libido is, you know, and that sexual energy, but the energy of wanting to get something done, moving forward, you know, just impulsive or, you know, acting out. But also it can be guided energy, in which, you know, where I decide, you know, I'm going to be a warrior. And of course, it's going to be different for everybody, wherever these planets fall and the signs are in. But we do know that we got this Pluto in Capricorn. If I'd now take the solar fire here, you know, and I feel restricted, like I could say a lot more. Then I think I find it easier when I'm in conversation with one other when I'm in conversation with somebody. So I might bring somebody into a conversation with me in the next week on the chart as well, because it's, you know, getting a banter two-way is quite a good way to bring in a lot more conversation and feeling freer to actually say what one wants to say. So if we see here that Pluto, I'm going to take this chart back. I'm going to show you. This is November 2021. So now what I'm going to do is take you back to watch the Pluto here. And we're going to go back by years, because Pluto takes 240 years around the chart. So let's go back. Whoops, I'm going forward. We want to go back. And I'm going to take you to 10 degrees of, there you go, 29 degrees. In 2008, it was at 1st November 2008, it was 29 degrees 14 of Sagittarius. So if we go weeks ahead and move that, so 0 degrees, you know, we've got Pluto moved into Capricorn on January the 25th, 2008, and it will complete its time in Capricorn on January the 21st, 2024, and it's the end of a cycle. Okay, it's really important that we understand that, what this Capricorn is about, because when it moved in 2008, we had the financial crisis, and we've had where money and also government rule, patriarchal rule, and you know, the government is being very, you know, there's been a lot gone on in this period of time. I'm reading from something I wrote, but also from my studies of evolutionary astrology. It's tied into my writing in this particular case. So it's an end of a cycle. It's been responsible as it's been moving through, and we can see as it's been moving through, it's responsible for dismantling structures. And no doubt, this is what I wrote earlier this year, that no doubt COVID has helped speed up the dismantling, okay, of the structures, because it's Saturn as well. Saturn is Capricorn. So if we go years ahead and we go, you can see it's 4 degrees, 6, 8, 10, 12. And if we can bring it up to 2021 here, you can see where literally on the 6th of December 2021, it's going to be at 25 degrees 11 as an example. So we know it's at 25 degrees. We've got another retrograde going on or two before it hits into Aquarius for the next 20 years, which will be 2024 until 2044. So it's about dismantling. And we can see that's taking place. You can clearly see that in religious circles. We've seen it in Hollywood. We've seen it with the Epstein case. We've seen it with the royal family. And bit by bit, it's being chipped away. And we're at a point now with what we're seeing, in my opinion, is that with if we've not, something's being brought to light. And what will be brought to light is probably not going to be pleasant for a lot of people. That's what I'm seeing over the next few months, at least, anyway. And for many people, it will be quite a dark night of the soul. And I think that not everybody's going to be able to cope with probably what we're going to be seeing, because if something does not work the way that we thought it was going to work, it might not have been a great idea, to choosing words carefully, to include everybody in a study of, you know, trying to solve a problem with a virus which is Neptunian, which cannot be seen. Like we can't see it, you know. I don't know if anybody has seen it. From what I've heard, it's not been seen, but you know, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know, and I haven't really got any views on what people have chosen to do so much. But we were given a choice, and people have made different choices. And in my view, the Capricorn energy of trying to force something upon people is not on at all. I had authority as a child that, you know, that was used in a very unpleasant way toward me. So for me, and also I've got Pluto retrograde at birth, so I'm going to throw off anything that's overly authoritarian. It's my natural instinct to throw it off. I'm not interested. I don't want it. And what we can see in each chart, it's all different for everybody. And then depending on what, on our wisdom, our age, and where we're at. No, I'm not saying anybody's smarter than anybody. We're all at where we're at. We're all doing the best we can. So Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, being restriction, and Saturn is also teacher. And it's where the need, you know, we've needed to change really desperately, because it is not all about money anymore. We've seen droves of people walking away from their work out of choice, that maybe they've seen things on the front lines that they don't like. Whatever it is, we don't know what that is, because there's been a shutting down of people, allowing people to speak up and actually be authentic and really what they really want to say, you know. And it can, people can feel very, you know, we want to be safe, don't we? So we want to feel safe, and so therefore, but there's been a need for desperately for huge changes, and this is what is occurring. So Pluto in Capricorn, let's go ahead, 26, 27, 28, there you go, in 6, you can see here, 6th of December 2024, this will be then into Aquarius, which is, I will go into in another video. But Pluto in Capricorn is where old cycles and phases are coming to an end, and we can see this playing out. Here we need to have active self-reflection to examine all internal and outer structures, because it's about structure, because it is Saturn based, and when it's in Capricorn. Take it a year back. There you go, back in Capricorn. So it's where also we need to examine all internal and outer structures and realities experienced. In contemplation, we will acquire new self-knowledge. So because of COVID, a lot of us have been on, you know, locked down or whatever. So a lot of people have had the time to examine their internal structures and realities. And in contemplation, people have acquired new self-knowledge, which has allowed for some people to say, hey, I'm not being part of this anymore. I don't want anything to do with this. In looking at the structures of our lives, we can begin to eliminate all that no longer applies or works. That's what people are doing. I've been doing it myself. All patterns included, and to also view our emotions, our intellect, and our physical and our spirituality as well. And if you consider that's been going on because people have not been able to attend churches through the lockdowns, people were not able to hang out with their friends or loved ones or family members. And, you know, we got very short memories when we, you know, maybe it's sort of like giving birth, that, you know, a mother will give birth, you know, again and again, you know. That does happen. Some people just have one child, but you know, it can be somebody could experience a really painful birth, but that doesn't stop them having children, as an example of, you know, how we're restructuring. But we also, when we look back over what went on, when we look at the Floyd thing, and we look at the marches that were going on, and we look at the forcing of injections maybe, and then the idea that that's going to be a cure, and then we're seeing numbers go up. It's a very confusing time for a lot of people. And you know, some people will believe that, you know, another shot is going to save them, and some people will believe they won't. So I'm just saying what's going on and what I'm seeing. I haven't really got my own particular view. I've got my own private view on it, but I keep it very much to myself, because I'm living my life and I'm not, you know, bothering anybody. I'm looking after myself at the moment. That's what I'm up to. So all patterns included and our emotions. Changes lead to new cycles. Here we can look at and see where our responsibility lies, and we also have a chance to acknowledge our own actions and reactions. So we can acknowledge our own actions and reactions. So how do I act? We ask ourselves this because I don't think some people think about how they act at all. I definitely see that going on around me. And I don't think that some people actually look at how they react either. I see that also going on around me. With this Pluto in the last leg of Capricorn, this is not a time to blame, but a time for deep reflection, deep self-reflection. Growth can occur, but existing responsibilities and any obligations must be looked at. So we need to look at any obligations we have. Where are we obligated? Where do we want to be obligated? Where do we no longer want to be obligated? And also, as being a human on planet Earth, we do have an obligation to each other. And we also have an obligation to the children who don't have the consciousness yet to make decisions and choices for themselves. Worth thinking about too. Just because as an adult I think what might be right for a child doesn't actually mean it may be right for a child, as an example. If somebody's a healthy parent, then they will see things one way, but if somebody's not developed and an unhealthy parent, then they might see things another way. And again, no judgment, I'm just giving you some ideas here. Growth can occur, but existing responsibilities and obligations, I'm repeating myself, must be looked at. This is also a time to look at our judgments, becoming aware of our own judgments and how that reflects on how we perceive or treat others. So when we judge, we're definitely, part of being human is that we do have to make judgment to a degree. Judgment is a choice. I'm going to judge, how I'm going to cross the road. I'm going to judge the foods that I'm going to eat. You could use another word for it, but it's about making comparisons. It's about looking at things, and it's about saying, oh, I'm not sure about that, or yes, I want this. And then it's also that Mars energy and inner knowing, like a desire of what we want and what we don't want as well. This is also a time to look at our judgments, becoming aware of our own judgments and how that reflects on how we perceive or treat others. Looking at our actions and thinking our shadow, looking at that so we can release behaviors around our judgments that no longer apply, and look at the old attitudes to see what applies and what does not. Reflecting helps us to release all that is outdated. If we don't have time to reflect and we don't reflect, then we don't really make any changes. When we reflect, we go, light bulb goes on, or we're forced into it. Pluto will do that, but Pluto will force us into, not Pluto, but the understanding of what Pluto is and the archetype of Pluto. The planets aren't doing anything. And this period, we're looking at cycles. This period can also create a feeling of emptiness and or personal meaningless for us. So we can see there's a lot of meaningless, going on at the moment. It's like, what is the future? None of us know. Like, we just don't know. And this is very fascinating. But at the same time, with that unknowing, we can tap into our soul, what is my soul desire? And what do I really want? So bringing about some meaningless into our lives, which has been forced upon us, gives us meaning at some point in the reflection. We might feel weary with life, and this can lead to us deeply reflecting and looking at what needs to change. So I would say that Pluto, because it is in the last leg, and also the U.S.A. has its Pluto return at 27 degrees, which is in February 2022. In that feeling weary, also we can really look at, and also if we look at the collective with regard to the toxicity we put out in our water, in the soil, and the way we treat the earth, and the things that are going on in earth, which are a reflection of how we treat it. If we treat something well, then it has some longevity and it's looked after. If we fed the soil beautifully and looked after it, and we didn't use loads of pesticides, and we also changed our eating habits and demanded a higher level of quality, again, a lot of changes are taking place. So this last leg is speeded up version now, and this is, I think we can see with the COVID thing that's really brought it to a head. It's a time for deep soul searching that will allow us to restructure, and that will give us new meaning, and it can be given as well. So it will. And there will be a cut off, a split off between in the Aquarius, because that's what Aquarius is. It's where we split. You know, what some people will go this way and some people will go the other way. We're going to do that. It's already happening. We're seeing people leaving in masses that have worked, you know, on front lines for many, many years. You know, some people 20 years, 30 years, for a long, long time, where people are walking away. And we want to become aware of how the past is playing out. This is a time of redefining what is old, so new structures can be built. Forms and structures shape our inner and outer reality. So, you know, we all have structure in our lives, the way we go about our day, the time we wake up, the time we eat. We've all got structures going on when we go to work, when we have rest. And also there are structures outside ourselves, which is the collective structures. And we've got the inner and outer reality. So we've got our own inner reality and the outer reality, but our inner reality will generally be projected onto the outer reality. Pluto in Capricorn also covers our own authority and our career. So my own authority over my own life and my career, and my, you know, also my structure, which, because Saturn is also to do with the bone structure, and without any bones we wouldn't be moving around or doing anything, if you think about it. So the structure and the teeth and the bones and the structure of being human, the skeleton is part of that. So we need to, and that's Capricorn as well, the Capricorn aspect of that, we need to ensure our career contains potential and allows for us to have full self-expression. So many of us have been in careers where we're not able to fully express ourselves or our true full self-expression. And if our work does not fulfill us, we must process and change and create change in that area. You know, make sure you're choosing something that is fulfilling to you, you know, whatever level we're at. Some of us are at the beginning of our career, some of us are at the middle of it, some of us are, you know, the spring, the summer, the winter, and the autumn and the winter of our lives, depending on where we're at. And you can be, you know, you can be mature, and it can be a fresh beginning, it can be a spring in a new career. So again, it's not just about age. And this will mean finding a new career or redefining the current one. So we can either redefine the current one or we find a new career, and Pluto will push it. And you want to look where that Pluto is transiting. For me, it's in my second house of values. We need courage. We are going to need courage. And I've seen so much courage in the last 2 years. So much courage. A lot of PTSD, a lot of trauma, a lot of fear, the fear of death. I think that's been very good for a lot of people. You know, I mean, clearly there's been death. 60 million people die every year. If you look at the statistics on the World Calculator, so far this year, over 100 million babies have already been born this year in 2021. And all, you know, 40, I think I looked earlier, over 41 million people have died this year on planet Earth and left. So we have more babies being born than people dying. So we can be very, you know, looking at statistics and the media and what we're fed, we can believe sometimes that we can see things in a very distorted way. You know, not all of the statistics that we see are reflective of the reality. It will depend on our perception and our belief system and what else we're comparing it to and looking at. And also what's been labeled as misinformation is not always true misinformation. It's just that somebody else has got a different belief system, and because they've got more power, they're able to say that's misinformation. And if you've got the power, then you can chop people off and do what you want with them. But if you know, so we can see that's been playing out too. The final bit with the Pluto in Capricorn here, and I'm going to end this video for today, is that we need courage, and we must check in with our judgment also on ourselves that is based on parental judgment or those of society, because we've all been judged by our parents or society or siblings. And unfair self-judgment can harm us. We need to understand this, that we need to get rid of the inner critic, because unfair self-judgment can harm us in such a awful way. I know this to be true. Get rid of the inner critic, do the inner work, you know, go and get help if you need it. It is important to look at judgment eye to eye and eliminate all that which is stunting our own evolution. Some judgment is relevant. Remember this, not all judgment is bad, but some of it's outdated and useless. And here we must put ourselves into action to evolve. We need to start acting. We can't just keep sitting here thinking, oh, you know, this is happening, I don't like it. act into what you believe is right for you, and that find, you know, the groups of people that you feel that you can connect in and what's right for you on, you know, whatever matters they may be. Here we have a total redefining, and we must eliminate all that is outdated. And Pluto's going to do that for, it's not Pluto's doing it, but it's the cycle, that cycle. The positive here is that this is a new phase, will be beginning, that one requires perseverance and self-determination to step into courage, and a new life will occur. We're stepping into a new time. I'm going to leave it there. And you've got any comments, leave them below. And I'll catch you later with the moon that I'm going to do in a couple of days' time. Catch you later. Thanks for watching.